Okay, saxophones, this video is for you. So the first thing we're going to do is take a second look at your reed, make sure that it is nice and soaked. And even if you already soaked your reed at the beginning of your practice section, I would maybe recommend taking it off again, soaking it again, and then putting it back on your instrument to make sure it's nice and wet and ready to go for us. And another thing to check is make sure that your reed is aligned with your mouthpiece. So we don't want it to be too high and peeking over the top of the mouthpiece, and we don't want it to be too low and the mouthpiece is higher. We also don't want it to be off to the side because that's not going to make a good sound for us. So take a minute, double check, and make sure that your reed is soaked and that it's on your mouthpiece properly. The second thing we need to check is our posture. So make sure that you're sitting with your back straight, on the front edge of your chair if you're sitting in a chair, or if you're standing up, that's okay too, but make sure you're standing up straight and not hunched over or anything like that, and make sure that your music is high enough that you can see it without having to bend down. Another thing our saxophones need to check is make sure those fingers are nice and curved over your keys. I know a lot of times we like to hold them up really high, make sure we're not pressing anything down by accident, but if we have curved fingers and curved hands, then when we need to play really fast passages, it'll be a lot easier because we won't have to move our fingers quite so far. So make sure those fingers are curved and close to the keys. The next thing that I would like to remind you all about is using a lot of air to fill up your horns, especially in those lower notes. So a lot of times, saxophone players, it's kind of hard for us to get those lower notes out. I know that's true for me, especially when I'm playing saxophone. So make sure you're just blowing all of that air. Have a really open throat. Think about yawning. And then playing saxophone with that feeling like you are yawning. Make sure you're using enough air, and make sure even at those softer dynamics, when we are playing at piano or doing a decrescendo, we're still using all of that air to make sure we keep up that really good sound. And the last thing to look at for saxophones is take a look at measure 2. Find that in RLE number 53. And this is line A, measure 2. I'm looking at that transition between the D and the A. And the transition between the D and the A, it's kind of a lot of notes, right? Because we have a lot of fingers moving. And what we want to do is make sure that we can't hear the transition between the D and the A. It should just sound like da, 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 instead of ba, blah, blah. Okay, so practice doing that transition and making all your fingers go down at the same time so you can't hear your fingers in those transitions. And something else that will help with that is make sure you're using your tongue. Think of using the very tip of your tongue to the tip of the reed, and every single note should sound like two, 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 two. So that's something to work on as well. When I'm listening to your recording at the end of the week, those are the things I will be listening for. So make sure that you are using that tongue, that we can't hear your fingers in any of the transitions of the notes, and make sure you're using a lot of air, even at the softer volume, so we can get a really good sound. Okay, saxophones, happy practicing!